It's been 18 years since Djokovic has not reached the fourth round of the US Open. It's been 22 years since a member of the Big Three has not won a Grand Slam tournament. This is an insane amount of time if you think about it. And a lot of people are speculating that this is it for Novak, that he's done, burnt out. He has nothing else to play for. I'm just going by what Novak is saying in his interviews, and it appears that Novak doesn't look at it that way. He enjoys the competition, he enjoys tennis, and he wants to keep going as long as he possibly can. But it is clear that if you look at the year 2024, this has been one of the worst years for Novak despite him winning Olympic gold. In fact, Novak currently is 7th in the race to qualify for the year-end championships in Turin, and there's a lot of other players like Dimonauer and Dimitrov that if they do well, maybe at the US Open or in some of these other tournaments, that they're going to overpass Novak, and there's a likelihood that Novak might not qualify for that tournament. He's scheduled to play 2 more tournaments till the end of the year, Shanghai and Paris, and he's going to have to play well in those tournaments to qualify. So this has not been a good year for Novak. And before I give you my analysis of Djokovic's current level and his loss to Popyrin in the 3rd round, let's first give credit where credit is due. And Popyrin is playing amazing right now. Not a fluke that he won Montreal. This guy is an amazing player. And I thought that he played a tactically sound match against Novak. See, in the past, Novak sometimes struggled against players who gave him no pace. I'm sure you remember Gilles Simon, who played some really tight matches with Novak, who would give Novak basically nothing to work with. So I thought it was a very good tactic for Popyrin to slice a lot of backhands. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Popyrin is slicing these backhands. Novak is going to dominate those baseline rallies, but Novak didn't. He did take some of those slices with his forehand and open up the court, but when Popyrin sliced to Novak's backhand, Novak was just rolling the ball back in play. So I thought that that was an excellent tactic from Popyrin, slicing to Novak, not giving him a lot of pace. So let's break down the match. In the first set, Novak actually had some looks to get a break. He had love 40 up 3-2, and then he had more break points up 4-3. So Novak actually had a good look to win that first set. But then, weirdly, Novak lost his serve to Love at 4-all, and Popyrin served out the set. And once Novak lost the set, we saw some of the same troubles that Novak has had all year, where he didn't seem to be mentally in this set. He was rushing between points. He was making a tremendous amount of double faults. His first serve percentage was low throughout the match. He was at 54%, and he served a total of 14 double faults. But to me, that second set cost Novak dearly because he just wasn't in the match mentally speaking. When I see Novak rushing between points, not taking any time, I get worried. And I've never seen Novak play well when he does that. So he loses that second set, and I thought that possibly Novak could go out in straights, but Novak did try hard in that third set. Played some really good tennis and ended up winning it 6-2. The fourth set was such a clutch performance from Popyrin because Novak now was in the match and he was playing a lot better. And there were 2 key games in that fourth set that won Popyrin the match. There was that long game at 2-all in the fourth where Novak was serving. It went deuce a bunch of times, and it was possibly the best point of the entire match. A long extended rally where Popyrin pulled the trigger on the forehand from behind the baseline and hit an inside-out winner, and then made an extended grunt, got the break. But to me, where Popyrin won the match was in that next game because Novak Djokovic is the master of the re-breaks. So when Popyrin was serving at 3-2, found himself down 15-40, but he ended up holding that game and went up 4-2. Those 2 games to me were the 2 most important games of the match. And that's how Popyrin got the victory. I will also say that when it came to serving out sets, and especially serving out the match, Popyrin was clutch. He didn't show any signs of nerves, and it was a very impressive performance. And to me, the most impressive thing about this victory were Popyrin's tactics. A lot of players tried to go through Novak and they hit hard, and Novak loves pace, and he's maybe the greatest counterpuncher in the history of the game. But Popyrin not only sliced a lot of backhands, he also mixed up his forehand, I thought. He would hit some higher, spinny forehands, and he would wait for his chances to pull the trigger. A beautiful example of that was that break point in the fourth set at 2-all, where Popyrin was spinning a lot of deep forehands, and then eventually when he felt like he had a look, he pulled the trigger on the forehand, hit a blistering winner inside out. So tactically, this was an excellent match from Popyrin. Now let's talk about Novak. So everybody's saying that both Alcaraz and Novak lost because of the Olympics. And there's an interesting post on Twitter where they show the medalists at the Olympics, which were Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Musetti, who are all out of the US Open. And they show the medalists for the women, which were Zheng, Vekic, and Swiatek, and they're all still in the US Open. So does that mean that the women are tougher than the men? First of all, you have to judge each player individually. It's hard to draw these conclusions. And if you think about it, the schedule was so jam-packed this year. You had Wimbledon, Olympics, and US Open in a very short time span. And obviously, it's a lot more difficult to play best of 5 at a Grand Slam compared to best of 3 at a Grand Slam. So you can't really make that comparison. But more specifically, that final between Alcaraz and Djokovic, I do think that at the emotional level, maybe not necessarily at the physical, even though those two can surely be connected, that match took a lot out of both guys. And they needed more time to decompress from that match. The changeover to the hard courts was simply too fast. So I do think that this affected both Alcaraz and Djokovic. Alcaraz said that this match did not have an effect on him, and Djokovic did say that he just didn't have enough time to prepare for this tournament. And it's one of the reasons why he said this was one of the worst matches that he's ever played. In fact, he said that this was one of the worst tournaments that he's ever played, and he's lucky to have made the third round. So I do think that that pressure cooker of a situation at the Olympics had a huge impact. But I also think that Montreal, being the week after the Olympics, is absolutely brutal. And it is clear that the players who decided to skip the Olympics have a huge advantage over the players that went deep into the Olympics. And that could explain why the 3 men's medalists are already out of the tournament. So what's next for Novak? Well, I do think that rankings are important, and he doesn't want to find himself in a situation like Nadal. And I'm not saying that this will happen, because Nadal is not even in the top 100, and he's getting the absolute most brutal draws. So I do believe that Djokovic has to continue to play a fairly packed schedule to keep his ranking high. And how will he perform? Well, it's impossible to predict. Personally, I'm happy that Novak is still playing. The tour is better off with Novak in it. There's a lot of attention and excitement around Novak, whether it's the haters or the fans. So I'm very curious to see how Novak will play until the end of the year, whether he will make the year-end championships, and let's see what happens.